Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve, and today I wanted to talk about my plans for the mod Dark Souls Re-Remastered, as I just released version 0.9, which includes a lot of bug fixes and slight updates to Firelink Shrine and Undead Burg, and just slight how much of the diff setting was turned on and specular settings, and so just small coloring tweaks and different things like that. But one other thing I was messing around with on Twitter the last few days or posting on Twitter is I loaded the Great Hollow map into Undead Burg, because if you load it into Undead Burg, this is actually where the trees, the arch trees, show up. Now, of course, if you zoom in here, you'll see the top of Ash Lake is like this little canopy thing. But anyway, it started a whole conversation about, does this make sense? Isn't Lordran situated on top of the arch trees and they form like a canopy? And my reasoning, because I was like, oh, this would be a really cool view to have from Solaire's balcony right here. And you get this really sick view. Of course, this would not be viewable, as you can actually just go into map pieces and then set that to not display. But I thought it was really cool looking, and from a lore perspective, I tend to think it's a bit of both, where the arch trees obviously do make up the bedrock of Lordran, right? But I also think that elevation is variable, and so when you go down here, it wouldn't blow my mind that there would be arch trees around here. And that was sort of my idea of having them poke up, because we do know the Great Hollow, which is right over here, does pop up, right? So it's not a crazy idea. Oh, I actually never realized that they actually, when you load in Ash Lake, they had perfectly put a tree where the Great Hollow is, which I guess does make total sense. I don't know why that is surprising to me, but I don't think I ever realized it when I had Undead Burg. It's also because in my Undead Burg map, I had placed this actual Great Hollow from the Blighttown map, whereas originally in the Firelink map, it's just a giant JPEG. It's like a flat tree JPEG. It's really bad. So I had replaced that in the Firelink map first, and then I had ported it over to the Undead Burg map so you can see it in the same location no matter where you're at in Firelink or Undead Burg. But anyway, long-winded way to say that this was one of my more creative changes, which I've had many if you've been watching the videos for weeks and months. This project, I've always sort of gone between going, oh, okay, there's a creative change I could make, and then I go back on it. And this is one where I got enough pushback of people going, yeah, but it kind of ruins the surprise that you would get from finding Ash Lake. And of course, my response to that was like, yes, but I also think people would see the trees, because I had lowered these trees, put more fog, more depth of field to make them less noticeable, and they wouldn't look like this, right? And obviously this part didn't come with it, this giant rock wall. Just imagine that was not there. And I don't know, so my response was like, well, I don't think a new player is going to see this and then immediately go, oh, I can go there. No, I think they would still be incredibly surprised when they would go into the Great Hollow and then go past two illusory walls to find it. But regardless, I got enough pushback, probably 30%-ish, and then most people really thought it was awesome. But that someone in my Discord gave me the idea of, why don't you do a director's cut, essentially, after you finish, the initial mod, do a separate version where you can do creative things and get a little wonky with it. And I was like, damn, that's a good idea. Because over the course of making this mod, just some of the things off the top of my head I remember that I did that were a little different. For instance, Darkroot Garden. I had, let me unload that. Darkroot Garden I had basically made into Brightroot Garden. If any of you OGs are still here, I had made it match up more so with Undead Burg in terms of lighting, and it ended up looking really cool. Of course, it was not accurate at all to the original game, and so now it's obviously back to its dark version, but that's something I would love to play with. And so yeah, Brightroot Garden, and then I also made a change in Blighttown for quite a while, which there's not the real Blighttown down here in Undead Burg, but where I had made the water reflective instead of the swamp like sludge that's normally there. I had made it like reflective water because I thought it would look really cool, and so I would probably put that back. And then beyond that, I had Firelink Shrine that in my mod for a long time had a much more warm appearance and sunny versus the standard like blue and green that it is. And so I could kind of be goofy with that, and I could institute a lot of those changes. And then my Undead Burg was kind of stationary mostly. Like, I don't know, it's always kind of looked somewhat similar. And Sense Fortress didn't look too crazy, but basically there's a lot of things I can do that I wouldn't be restricted as much. So I can have a more faithful version, which, to be honest, Dark Souls Re-Remastered in the end is not going to be 100% faithful, because I don't think that's entirely possible. I think that'd be a lot of pressure and stress on me. I think I can get it close, and I can look at references and try to... And so I think that's where I've landed on it being inspired by the Prepare to Die edition versus a 100% like recreation. I think I'm aiming more for inspired by it, and I will look at references between the two versions and settings, and so a lot of work goes into it, but I do think it's never going to be fully that version again, right? I think getting that sort of special nature of Prepare to Die is highly unlikely. Have these trees always been... Oh, this is Darkroot Garden. Okay, I was like, what the fuck am I looking at? Yeah, let me unload Darkroot Garden. But yeah, I think I could get kind of goofy with it and have like arch trees out here and just like a remixed version of Lordran. And I also think that making like Firelink Shrine snowy, like a snowy version of Lordran, sounds so sick. There'd be a ton of work that goes into that, of like altering all of the textures to appear snowy, unless there's like a better way of doing it. I know there's like a reshade that like applies a snowy look or something, but I would want to actually do it through the textures and look to the, I guess, the Painted World for the closest like snowy reference. But I would love to do that, or I could get kind of goofy and like I've done, I think, oh yeah, it won't display in my Undead Burg, but how I've, oh no, actually it does. Oh, that's cool. So this bridge texture, I've mentioned on Twitter, and I think I said in a couple videos that it's actually from Demon Souls, and it was basically the Boletaria bridge texture, and so I repurposed it for this bridge and this little bridge. And I would actually like to, in my remixed mod, I'm not sure what I'll actually call it. I won't call it like a director's cut, but some sort of cheeky name or something. And I could add in more Demon Souls textures. I could even have more references to Demon Souls, or just some, I don't know. I wouldn't be restricted by any sort of limitation on faithfulness, because I would already have done, you know, the thousands of hours or hundreds of hours, closing in on 1,000 hours of work on a mod that is focused more on that. So I think, I don't know, I'm pretty excited about that. So this is my rambly video announcing that. If you're still here, version 0.9 of the actual DSRR is released on Nexus, and it's on my Patreon with a Google Drive link, and it just includes bug fixes as well. I fixed a mesh hole. Shout out to Illusory Wall, which, if you don't follow them on YouTube, what are you doing? That's the creator of the Dark Souls Dissected series, among other things. and follow them on Twitter as well. They tweeted at me saying, hey, here's a mesh hole. And I'll actually show you the mesh hole. It was in Lautric's cell. There was a mesh hole right up here at this like seam. And I ended up actually, my mod had already sort of fixed it because I had the outside map piece rendering at an earlier point than it normally did. So that already like plugged in this. There was actually a hole right here. And then on the edges, even with that change, there was like little holes here and here. And then they also, I had to fix that section and that section. So now they actually display correctly. A couple more tweaks I got to do in here, but I thought that was cool. It's surreal to get tweeted at. Also, these trees look terrible. That has something to do with a texture change I did, but I was pretty sure I undid it. So I don't know why they look like hot dog shit. Oh no, I do know why. Okay, I'll fix that. But yeah, go download 0.9. I think it's up to like 9 gigabytes now, because I added boss textures for Quelaag, Iron Golem, Nito, the Taurus Demon, Hellkite Drake, Asylum Demon, of course. And then after that, I've been going through every enemy and more like NPCs. The Firekeeper and Firelink Shrine got updated with newer textures. Most of them are ported from the Prepare to Die edition. Not all. There actually have been cases now where DSR, there's a few occurrences where they had access to source textures versus like just, it's clear they weren't upscaling. Like this was genuinely a source texture of just so much higher quality than what Prepare to Die had. So clearly they had the access to the original ones. I think what I find weird is that it's a very rare occurrence generally. Like most of the textures are the same resolution or just have creative differences, but very rarely are they just genuinely better textures. But when it comes to like enemies, and mostly just enemies, yeah, you'll find that they did just have source textures for things, but not for everything. That's what I find odd. I'd love to know the story behind, I guess there weren't source textures for some things, but for like an axe on a hollow, DSR had 2 times the resolution and just looks so much better. Which actually, let's jump onto my Twitter real quick, because let's do a little catch up for anyone who doesn't follow me on Twitter. This also helps me remember what the hell I've done. Also, this Dark Souls 3 alpha image seemed to come out, and so I upscaled it because I was like, oh my god, it looks gorgeous. Can you imagine Dark Souls 3 with whatever the hell this giant tentacle monster is? No thanks. I might be streaming later today. I feel like I'm going to stream. Play some Dark Souls 2. This was a texture I found in the files. It was C2519, and all of the like model ID listings for all of the enemies, because they've obviously categorized all of them since it's been out for a long time now. But 2519 isn't mentioned in the ones that I saw. They skipped from 2510 to 2520, and so I had to look closely at this texture. I'm like, who the hell is this? Because it's like missing teeth, there's white hair, this looks like a braid of some sort. So my immediate idea was like, is this some version of Andre that was cut or something? And then this was an interesting enemy texture, where this was the Prepare to Die version, and this was remastered, which I found, which I had been told by, I think, Trivia. She was telling me they basically used, I found this out. Oh my god. Twitter is weird about nesting replies here. Yeah, so you can see here, this is the specular map from the Prepare to Die edition for this set. And you can see all the highlights for like this little extra detail. And you can tell that DSR, what they did is they basically took that specular map from Prepare to Die, and this is the Prepare to Die albedo texture. And you go over here, they clearly like overlaid it in some way, and that's how you get all this extra they really stand out. I ended up going with the Prepare to Die version and then trying to change up the coloring just a little bit and boost the contrast just a tad and try to bring out some of these details. So mine is a bit of a hybrid between the two, and then I upscaled it as well. And so you get a little bit more of those like scratch marks and just a little bit more detail. All right, so let's go back. Let's go back. All right, what else have I done? Yeah, I just recently, this is Ornstein. I took a screenshot with him. Or that's Ornstein. What am I talking about? Smo. And this is with the Prepare to Die texture put back and upscaled, of course. And I think it actually looks really good. Some of their textures were actually lower resolution than the DSR equivalent, so I had to sort of like make up for that using upscaling, but I think it actually worked pretty well. They look vastly more correct because DSR had deep fried their textures. And Marvelous Chester, this was one, I was going through the textures. This is the Marvelous Chester set we got, or not set, but these are his actual textures that the character gets. But this here is actually a prototype that's in the files, and they just didn't use, but it's like he shops at Hot Topic and is just emo. I kind of love it. And then I believe in this, I actually showed down here, because I said, wait, his red eye is red? Have I never noticed this? And so this is the Prepare to Die version. And then this is the DSR version, where you'll notice the red eye is gone, the teeth are gone. I'm assuming they're doing more of it through the specular map or something. But it's still weird. It's a very strange thing. Then I posted a video of me walking around Anor Londo, because it still blows me away how good it looks. Anor Londo is just, god tier art direction. And we have, maybe I'll end most of my videos with like updates on Twitter, because I do a lot of stuff on Twitter that I don't either do in video and I don't post elsewhere. This is a prototype chained prisoner texture that was unused in the game, and just really cool. Look at all these chains that are all like flowing together. I'm not sure what the actual model would have looked like. And here we have Kaber Demon with their Prepare to Die texture restored and upscaled, and me awkwardly standing next to him. And there's his weapon upscaled as well with all this blood and gory detail. You love to see it. And then his boss room looks really quite good, like with the added grass. And like all of this work was months ago. And then there's extra shrubbery that was cut content. Not really cut content, but it was just a cut map piece. But Kaber Demon looks fucking weird, man. Trying to get a zoomed in shot, I was like, nah. And then this is using DSR Gadget. You can turn off the enemies from attacking, but you can still have them move. So you can sort of toggle. And so they kept following me, and I hoovered up enough enemies that I was like, shit's getting crazy. And I can talk my way out of this. I absolutely know it. It can happen. And then I just have more. Oh yeah, so here's actually what I was talking about earlier. This is the Prepare to Die axe for like a hollow. This is the texture, and this is the DSR version. And it's 2 times the resolution. And this is where you can tell this is not upscaling. Because upscaling, I can use my current upscaling, and I could not reproduce the amount of detail that's here. You'll also notice they don't do any creative changes, really. Whenever they have source textures like this that are genuinely better, I have found that QLock doesn't really then fuck with it anymore. It's odd. Oh, actually, I didn't read that comment. I wonder if they just had access to the original uncompressed files, because this one specifically has details that you wouldn't even see if you didn't go back and forth and said, oh yeah, I can see. Exactly. That is 100%. I agree with that. Where, yeah, there's no way they did this by hand. Actually, I'll reply while I'm here. Yes, exactly. Original source textures. But that's what I find weird, is it seems like either there just wasn't a lot of source textures for certain things, because this is another example where you can see, oh, okay, that's kind of low res, and then this is the DSR version, and that's just a massive increase in detail that they absolutely did not do by hand. They just had access to the original stuff. And this was an interesting one. This was Sif's Sword. And this is one where I ended up overall preferring the DSR one, because it's not a source texture situation. This honestly seems to be sort of creative flair, or unless they saw concept art or they saw something, because there's clearly an inspiration, a very clear inspiration here of what they were going for, of like a more weathered look, but also I'm assuming this was like sort of like corrupted by the abyss or some sort of, it looks kind of like ice or snow affecting it. And then the Prepare to Die version does look a little plain, and they're the same resolution, but generally I got some feedback from people and they were like, yeah, this is actually a case where I think the DSR one is honestly pretty good. I don't agree with that one where they said they deep fried it. I'm like, no, doesn't look like that. But honestly, yeah, like I think the best one was Can't See It Through the Tears either way. Yeah. So anyway, this was a rambling video of announcing the director's cut, but I also just wanted to talk about a bunch of other fucking things. So look forward, or we'll go and download version 0.9, and then let me know what you think, and if you find any bugs, join the Discord. That's the best way to report bugs. I don't really recommend doing them through Nexus as much. I don't check that as often because a lot of the comments on there kind of are not great. They're usually like, it's too dark, it's too bright, it's too blue, it's too green. I'm like, okay, well, all right, got it. But yeah, let me know what you think, and let me know what you think about the like a director's cut version, which I can do later. I don't think that will be my next project. I'm kind of leaning towards basically restarting my Dark Souls 2 remaster kind of thing, or visual overhaul is what I call it, but I'd like to start it mostly from scratch because I've learned a lot. Admittedly, most all of what I've learned for DSR is not applicable to DS2, but I would like to do a DS2 remaster using strictly like DS2 lighting engine plus all the DS Map Studio stuff I've learned. It functions very differently, but I'm more resourceful and I've learned more things now. And I know I could do a better job than what I did on DS2 originally. And the way that I can really alter the environments through DS2 lighting engine versus trying to alter things in Map Studio. But anyway, I think I would want to start fresh on that and then really nail down Dark Souls 2 and have a faithful version, just like I'm doing for Dark Souls 1. That's kind of my theory at the moment, is I could then go whole hog on that, if that makes sense. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.